6 p.m., so I'd like to call the Westfield Redevelopment Commission meeting to order. John, if you would, let's take roll.
Jimmy Cox.
Here.
Bob Beaudre. Bob Beaudre. Linda Noss.
Here.
Doug Holtz.
Here.
Jill Doyle.
Here.
Joe
Okay, only one
Blankus.
missing is Bob, so we have a quorum of four members. Okay, first item on the agenda is the discussion of the use of escrow for bullpen capital improvements at Grant Park. So Ken, are you on the line? Are you going to handle it?
Are we doing these minutes?
Ken Coker, are you on the line?
Okay, thank you.
Ken, can you hear us?
Okay, I guess Ken's not hooked in yet. We'll give him a second here, see if we can get him signed in. Okay, is your microphone on, Blake? Oh, just hit the button on the base. There you go.
Well, Ken was going to do the back half of our presentation anyway, so
Okay.
I can walk us through kind of the initial stuff, and then when we kind of get to the finances,
Okay.
hopefully he's figured it out by then. So,
Okay, why don't you identify yourself?
yep, I'm Blake Hibbler. I'm the president of Bullpen Tournaments. And I've been with Grand Park since Bullpen Tournaments since 2013. And so we have met individually with several of the members of the RDC now, and kind of wanted to just walk you through that timeline with both of you have sat through, and I know there's other people on the phone that have not. And so wanted to kind of talk through where we've come from and how we've ended up where we're at today.
That's great.
And give you some teams and different numbers that have come through the park. So we started in 2012. At the time, it was with the Indiana Bulls. Ken Coker was the president of the Indiana Bulls. We met with the mayor, Hankey Development, and the city team. At that time, the Bulls declined basically to, they wanted to be a part of it, but they knew they were a non-for-profit, and they knew that they could not execute tournaments. So Bullpen Tournaments was basically formed and then signed over the contract from the Indiana Bulls. Mike Mundy, Ed Devine, and myself were hired in 2013. At that time, the park was obviously still dirt, so we kind of helped with the planning of the diamonds, kind of helped oversee construction with Hankey Development and Brandon at the time, and there was another gentleman that was with us at the time that was kind of overseeing all the construction. So 2014, we actually signed the contract with the city and opened the park. Park opened in March. At that time, we just invested in the equipment. It was near impossible to kind of figure out when we were actually going to open, so it was kind of hit or miss. We were selling a bunch of dirt and telling a bunch of, somewhat fibs to even make sure we had teams out at the park. So we ended up with 600 teams. The full park did not get open until early June. So that number was really light at the time. So at the time, our investment was, money into equipment, money into people, things of that sort. So 2015 was kind of our first year, and that was kind of when we viewed the park as being fully open. We had 1,200 teams that year, doubled the number of teams that we took in. We had a bunch of rentals at that time, so we were doing a lot of one-off rentals, dealing with contracts, didn't own the events, a lot of those things. 2016, kind of same operation. We were starting to come into our own. 14, 15, I think I was one of the only operators at the park and was there probably more than anybody should ever be anywhere. So 2016, we kind of got our full staff together. That team's still in place now. Michael Tucker came on in 15, and Rhett Goodmiller came on late 15, early 16 as well. So our full-time management staff is still there. Ed Devine is still with us. Mike Mundy's still with us. So our team's been together for quite some time now. 2017 was kind of a big year for us publicly. We hosted the Little League World Series on ESPN. You can notice our teams. At this point, we have outgrown Grand Park. We knew it was coming at the tail end of 2016. So in 17, we started to research with the city, with other people, how can we take more teams? How can we get more people to Grand Park? Our events, for the most part, had outgrown the park. So when you sit back and look in 14 and go, there's no way we're ever going to outgrow 26 fields, and we did it in 17. It was something that we started kind of exploring different options to figure it out. So we've always used the high school fields. We've had partnerships with Westfield and Noblesville and Sheridan and Guerin and really everybody around we've partnered with to use their field in the summer, and Zionsville, and we've destroyed their fields, rebuilt their fields, and everything else. So that's when some of the conversations started taking place with other facilities. In 2018, one of the other ways we could increase fields was at Grand Park. So that's when we made the investment of $2 million into turfing the other 18 fields. And I think publicly that's, I don't know if that's always acknowledged that we did that privately. We cannot take the turf and run away with it. It's at Grand Park whether we're here or not. So it was a big commitment to our customer, and that was the reason we did it. Customer and our staff's time. So it helped us be able to play more games, because when people came to the town, they found out real quick that if you don't play, they don't come back. So we felt that was a necessary investment. If you look back to all of our competition in the area, they have since followed suit and have had to publicly fund all of that. They've not had the same private partnership that's been able to kind of help fund that turf project. So a lot of dirt facilities are now going turf, and you can look at all the high schools in the area, they're doing something similar. 2018, we saw a significant increase to 2,800 teams. And we also at this time entered into the common area maintenance handshake agreement, where we started taking care of trash, sewer, doing everything on the grounds. So that was kind of when that took place at the same time. 2019, our teams went up 3,100. We invested in Open Pro X. We are the majority owner in Pro X. 2020, we won't talk about. We'll just kind of move on. The one good thing is we do have a self-grown college summer league that is self-sustaining here. It's done it with no public dollars, and if you look at every single college team in the country, I would argue, there's probably a few I don't know about, but they're all publicly funded. You can look at every single one of those options, and we've done that through private dollars, and we've built it to be, it's ingrained in Grand Park. If I left today, I think the College Summer League would still be in existence. So I don't think that has anything to do with Bullpen. I think that's just something we've been able to create for the community. We helped lead the effort to get the park with William and his team to get the park open, and we were one of the first in the country. We were the first group to host in a minor league stadium a ticketed event. So we've done a lot of things in the baseball world that publicly I don't think always gets acknowledged or gets looked over. So in 2021 we opened Championship Park. That was able to add 900 teams right away. We were able to fill that place, and really all we did was shift teams playing at Sheridan High School and move them to Kokomo. That is still, everything operationally stays in our office at Grand Park. Those teams register through the website just like they would always. And so that's been a great addition. It's given the customer a much better experience. I mean, they're able to go up to a beautiful facility as opposed to a grass high school. It again ensures that they're going to play. And they still are, a lot of them are still hoteling here. Prior to opening Kokomo, I don't think we had people already staying in Kokomo, just due to the reach that these teams had been pushed out to. We had teams staying in Lafayette, at the airport, Kokomo. We had teams all the way out in Anderson staying the night because of our hotel demand. So when you look at that, it's like, there's still rooms going to Kokomo for sure, and we're still helping fill their hotels, but that runs through our third party that, the city has agreed upon. So you can see a significant uptick in teams. And then in 22, which we're going into this year, we're 50% sold. We are 13% ahead of where we were last year at this time. So I think that commitment with Kokomo and everything else is, our customers saying it was a good move, in our opinion. So we also were able to secure the first national softball tournament that's going to be held here. We were able to win a bid against a group in Florida, and it's a 3-year deal, so we're going to have 296 teams join us on a shoulder weekend, which is during Colts camp, and we're looking to do things with the Colts for it, and should be an awesome kind of an event, and it'll add a ton of hotel rooms with one team, being from out of state. So that's kind of our timeline, and where we started. I'm sure I missed a whole bunch of stuff, but that's a little bit about bullpen tournaments. Then on the second page, just kind of numbers that I think we don't do a great job of explaining, but we've had 22,000 teams play at the park since it opened. We've played over 75,000 games. We've had 650 tournaments, well over 220,000 room nights. WSI hosts, it's right around 90% of their activity at Grand Park. So, Ken, did you make it on?
Okay. Of course, yeah. Sorry, I had the wrong number. Sorry, Joe. I was dialed
okay.
into, I guess, meeting
Blake
or
covered
something.
for you.
But
He's good.
I know. Well, that gives me the opportunity I wanted to lead into Blake and acknowledge Blake and what he has done for the city of Westfield and Grand Park and bullpen tournaments. He's the best in the industry by far. And we have him right here in Westfield. He lives in Westfield. His family's in Westfield. He's an unbelievable addition to Westfield. He's been with us since 2000. Well, it says 13, but 12. But even before then, we've known Blake. He's, we use the term rainmaker. He makes it happen. He has unbelievable. He and his team with Michael Tucker and Rhett Goodmiller and their team, they have unbelievable connections in the baseball world, and which is so very, very important to getting teams that come to Grand Park year after year and team after team. And so that's kind of my lead in. I wanted before he took off, but he did a nice job of explaining everything. But the main reason why we're here tonight is not necessarily to brag about what we've done. I mean, we're happy with what we've done and what we've done for the city of Westfield. We're very thankful for you, the RDC and City Council and City of Westfield for what you have built and allowed, hundreds of thousands of people to attend and come to and brag about throughout the country. It's hard. You can hardly ever get on an airplane anymore without talking to someone that hasn't been to Grand Park or City of Westfield for Grand Park, and that should not go without being said. And but the main reason why we're here tonight is, we have this turf escrow in our contract that we have been contributing to for several years and will continue to contribute to. And I think it's on the third page, but you guys are probably all skipping ahead of me. But what we'd like to do is have a conversation with the Redevelopment Commission and talk about ways that we can improve the park. Not necessarily improve bullpens numbers or actually improve hotel numbers. I think all that kind of goes without being said. Blake said one thing that was ultimately very, very important, and that's customer commitment. The turf project was all about the customer. People are spending unbelievable amount of money for their family to come to Westfield to watch baseball or watch soccer or whatever, in our case, baseball. The least we can do is give back to them as far as what the facility looks like and continues to look like. And this, no different than having nice roads or nice hotels or nice restaurants in the city. If we didn't have that developing, it wouldn't be as much fun, or people would not be coming back. And what we want to talk to you about tonight is taking some of our escrow and reinvesting it back into the park, not for necessarily turf. Just as a reminder, if you ever read the agreement, so the agreement basically, we contribute a large sum of money, just shy of $300,000 a year to this escrow. It's been termed the turf escrow, but if you read the agreement, it says it's supposed to go towards turf first. And if we agree that there's any additional funds available after the turf is taken care of and is in playable condition, we can agree on using the remainder of the funds to better the park on the baseball side of the park with our money. And, you know, we've been doing this for 8 years, Blake, I think, and you know, so we've been doing it for quite some time. We've understand how the wear and tear happens per field, basically, not just the entire park, but even per field. And we went through an extensive study with our team and Ed Devine, but also with AstroTurf on every field, and did a study as to when we believe there will have to be any turf replacement on the fields. Keep in mind that when we say replacement, that's replacing like a large portion. Every year, every week, every month, we replace small portions of turf on the field that gets worn out or gets ripped or something like that, but it would be more to replace like an infield or an outfield. So that the agreement basically says that if we all believe and agree that there's enough funds necessary to replace any needed turf, we can make an ask of the escrow to basically make some improvements. And so the third sheet basically is just a condensed spreadsheet, so bear with me. But after this year, in a month from now, let's say 2021, there will be about, call it $900,000, not about $850,000 to $900,000 sitting in the escrow account that John Rogers knows about. And from that, I believe a couple meetings ago, we discussed and talked about using, we made a request to replace 2 infields, Diamonds 3 and Diamonds 5. They're the high school fields that are the most used, to replace those infields before next season, because they're becoming very, very worn and dangerous, potentially dangerous to the consumer. So you guys approved that back then, and we got the ball rolling. Obviously, with the supply chain issue in the world right now, we would love to have had those fields done this fall, but it looks like it's going to be early spring before they hit the ground, and get that done. So at the end of when that gets done, we'll have around $700,000 in this turf escrow. And if you kind of follow the math here, basically, we believe there's plenty of funds here for the next, call it 10 years and even 20 years and beyond to replace the turf. Baseball does not wear as much as even soccer wears in certain cases in the big areas of the field. So it's not a big, we should never ever have to replace a full field as we move forward. So we believe there's adequate funds in the escrow to think about doing some different things to the park that would really make a difference to the consumer coming in. Again, it doesn't really necessarily add to either one of our bottom lines, but it would make a huge difference. And on the bottom of this spreadsheet, you can see that the items that we're pointing out that if we could tap into the escrow, this is what we would tap into the escrow for to better the park. So the first 2 items, which are Lot J and Lot H. Lot J is the furthest southeast part of the Grand Park. It is by far the busiest parking lot in Grand Park, by far. Always oversold from, I mean, we don't sell it, but overused. But about maybe a third to 40% of the lot is still gravel. If you recall, there was a house on there at one point in time that the city tore down, but it's still gravel, and the gravel area of the lot happens to be our number 1 gate going into Graham Park. And it's gravel, it's pitted, it's got holes. The city and us, we babysit that thing. We do a lot of things, but it doesn't matter. We get rain, it washes out. So Lot J is in dire need of some type of improvement. And we went and got quotes on the first two. The reason why Lot J is more expensive is because there's a drainage issue in Lot J. Every time it rains, the water drains towards the actual fields. And there's a couple of drains down there, but it creates a large puddle area where consumers walk in to our fields. It's an eyesore to say the least. But the reason why it's more expensive than Lot H, being that it's also twice as big, but it's because there has to be significant leveling and drains put in in order for that lot to drain properly. So that's a significant investment. Lot H is the furthest southwest of the baseball diamonds, right up Grand Park Boulevard, right by the batting cages that we put in. There's a gravel lot that is always full, and again, the same type of issues. The difference is it drains properly right now. It actually drains across the parking lot into a drain out into the retention ponds. So that is a little less significant to get done, but would be a huge improvement to the park to pave that lot and stripe it and keep our consumers feeling like they're at a first-class baseball park instead of a place built in the middle of a cornfield and have gravel lots. And I'll let you guys ask questions and I keep going if you would let me just kind of finish. But the third item, and these are in no particular order, the third item potentially could be one of the most important items. But the third item is our umpires have no place to rest, change clothes in between games because they're out in the heat. And we do a hodgepodge of how we take care of them right now. Some of them are dressing up in the areas above the concession stands, and over on the high school side of the park, most of them are changing in the parking lots and in their cars. And that's been happening since day one. It's really a hassle for the umpires. It's also turned into a potential liability to us and to the park for these guys with where they're changing clothes and hanging out and stuff like that. So we're proposing, and we have proposed already to William and his team we have a place that we've agreed upon. It's a temporary umpire building. It's like a double wide trailer basically, but it's off where you can't see it. We would landscape it. We don't have pictures in here, I don't believe, but we've been more than happy to show you. But it's in the middle of the park where you can't really see it, where we would fence and landscape it in and bring in a trailer for 6 months a year, a nice trailer, not a cheap one, where the umpires could basically call their home. Umpires are integral to our business. We don't have umpires, we're not in business. And so it's important for us to do that. So we're asking the city permission to help us with the escrow to concrete this area, fence the area, put trees around the area. And so that's that $80,000 there. And the last two are, this would really dress up the park, the entry improvements. If you guys remember when you go into the Colts camp, they have these large metal entry points that look fantastic, say welcome Colts fans or whatever it is. We'd like to do that to 6 of our entrances. We have 9, so we do it to 6 of them. And it would dress up the park tremendously as far as having a point of entry when you can see where this is where you enter the park. So that's what that is. And the last is we would like to contribute to planting over 5 years a tree planting program, which would basically fill in the park with trees over 5 years. If you've been through the park, with the exception of in the right smack in the middle of the park. There's a nice grove of trees where a path goes through. There are 0 trees around the park anywhere except for in the middle. We'd like to be able to take 5 years and, if not sooner, and start planting trees throughout the park to create some ambience, create some shade, create some backgrounds for when hitters hit and pitchers pitch and stuff like that. And that's the reason why it actually seems pretty cheap is because we actually, with Sportsville maintenance, would plant the trees. This is just the cost of the trees and putting them up. So that's $66,000. And so it'd be about $10,000 to $12,000 a year is what we'd be asking for there, and that would make a significant difference to what the park looks like. Just like when you guys planted trees down Grand Park Boulevard a couple of years ago. So, I mean, there's not a lot of action items, I think, from this group. I think it's just discussion items, and then what we would, depending on where it goes, then we'd like to come back to the Redevelopment Commission with a ask or a formal ask to use funds from the escrow to fund some of these projects that help better the park. They're not within the fences. That's what's kind of weird about it, with the exception of the turf, which is what the money was designed for. This is for outside the fences. It's parking lots, it's trees, it's entry points, it's area of umpire building. It's areas that they weren't necessarily an afterthought when we built the park, but you just don't know when you get into a place or a park exactly what you need. And so now that we're into it, we have a very good feel on what the money can be used, could and should be used for. So that's all we have. I'm more than happy to answer any questions regarding this, and I'll throw it back to you, Joe, Blake, unless you have
Okay,
anything
great.
else.
Thank you, Ken, I appreciate it. Since we have a number of our commission members in remotely, let me ask them first if they have any questions, and then we'll cover for those of us that are here in person. Doug, is there anything you want to ask or comment on?
Yeah, let me make a couple of comments. I appreciate the ideas that have been put forth for the use of the funds in the escrow account. I guess my main concern is what will be the future contributions into the escrow account? 2, do we have enough money in there right now to take care of the future needs for replacing turf? And so that's my primary concern. This escrow account is to make sure that we have an adequate field surface presented so that we continue the operation at Grand Park. That's my primary concern. The second, third, fourth, fifth areas, the parking lots are owned by Grand Park, by the city, by the Grand Park. And so if we're having problems with the parking lots, I would hate to see money come out of an escrow account designed for turf. I think that's something, if we're having problems with the parking lots, that's something the city should be taking care of. If we own those, that's our responsibility to take care of that. That's part of the annual maintenance and upkeep of our facilities. As far as the umpire facility, I agree 100% with you. That is, if you're going to be having teams in and we have umpires in, and I have friends that are umpires that do work at Grand Park, and if they're having to operate out of the back trunk of their car to get dressed, that's unacceptable. That's something that we as Grand Park should address. As far as the upkeep on the trees and the entry points, again, those are items. I applaud your bringing that to our attention. But I think that's something that we as the owners of Grand Park should be looking at on an ongoing basis to make our facilities more appealing, make our entry points appealing, do something as far as the landscaping, and that's something that we should be doing on an ongoing basis, and we should be looking at these things on an ongoing basis. So I applaud your ideas. I think they're admirable. I support them. My concern is, do we want this coming out of the escrow, the turf escrow account? Or do we want these to be built into our budget so that we are taking care of these, so that we can preserve the turf escrow funds? That's my concern. So those are my thoughts, Joe.
We've got William coming up towards the front, so I'm going to let William jump on the microphone here for a minute.
Yes,
Comments.
William Knox, Director of Grand Park. I think those are all valid comments, and just so you guys are aware, we've worked with Bullpen over the years and are aware of some of these issues and have been trying to figure out how we can identify solutions. I think Ken and Blake feel the pain of these more so than we do because they live it every day. Parking Lot J has been on our long-term capital list for quite some time. Revenues have just not been there to be able to kind of capture, to take care of that project. It's a fairly extensive project. To Ken's comments earlier, there is some drainage issues that has to be worked through. This has continued to bubble to the top of the project list as we've gone through the years, and it probably is a close second or third on our overall campus-wide capital improvement list. So if it is the desire of this body to review that further, we can with Bullpen to get an understanding of the cost and to see how that fits into the plans we have for 22 and 23.
Yeah, Doug raises some excellent points in looking at, the accumulation of operating funds and, how those are, I won't say escrowed, but reserved, so to speak, for different expenses that we would anticipate coming up. Really is no different than what Ken is suggesting on the escrow side for Bullpen. So if we can, I think it sounds like before bringing this forward as a formal proposal from Ken and his team, I think maybe you get together with them, William, and see what the other alternatives are for how we can hit certain improvements. Maybe that would be ultimately responsible through Jeremy to get installed on the city's part versus the Bullpen folks having to go out and spend money on assets that really belong to the city.
Yeah, and I think I promised you guys a few months ago to provide you with a 10-year outlook for
Right.
capital replacement. We are getting close to completing that document. Blake and Ken shared a couple weeks ago their document that kind of included all of their list of items that they viewed as capital projects that would kind of fall into that bucket. We're approaching, just as they are, we are approaching some different replacement related to the turf on the field sports side, but I think we could go into this with a collective view of what needs to happen first. So if you would give us, Ken, I think mentioned that he would come back with a formal ask first of the year. I think we can work quickly to.
January is fine, or even a
together
little
to
later
figure out.
if necessary, but obviously we don't want to hold up and miss a time window here for locking down some contracts if those are in fact time sensitive.
Yeah.
So if
I
you
will-
can
I'll
work with
get
those
with-
guys, that'd be great.
with
Okay,
Blake and Ken to work through
do you
that.
have anything else you want to add, William? I would
Nope.
like to hit the rest of the commission members. Is Bob Beaudry, are you on the line?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, do you have any questions for Blake or Ken or William in regards to what Ken just presented?
Nope,
Okay, Jill, do you have anything?
I do not.
I'm sorry, Bob, go ahead.
No, I said I do not.
You're good, okay. Jill, have you got any questions you want to ask?
No, I would just echo Doug's comments. I have some concern about them having to use their escrow money to replace or create parking lots. So I would like to see that come back as maybe improvements for the overall park versus it coming out of Bullpen's funds.
Okay, good point. Linda?
Well, I pulled the numbers today, and I'm glad, Ken and Blake, you brought this sheet of the numbers, but I want to reconcile those, because when I went to the appropriation summary report, it says that right now, in that fund, and also looking at our fund report at the end of October, that it looks like in that escrow account, we have $585,938. So you're showing at the end of this year, we're supposed to have 686. Have you already expended this 168,908? I didn't see that expended.
No. Yeah, no, so I
Okay.
think that your number is correct, but I haven't seen the number. So you add 285 to that.
Yeah,
We will be paying $285,000 not by December 31st, on December 31st.
okay. Yeah, and I think that may
And then we have not expended that money. That was approved.
Okay,
We were just hoping to get it done in the fall, which is not going to happen till, that probably is going to be a February or March
yeah,
disbursement out of the escrow.
Our timeline was 90 days from purchase to have the turf on site, and then we're
Yeah.
5 days of field and construction.
okay. So I think that 285, when you pay it in December, I think it shows up in our balances the next year. So I think we're kind of the 285 behind, so that's why I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you if you'd expended that 168. The other question I have is, can we use Grand Junction TIF funds for these parking lots? I thought you were projecting, John, next year that our TIF funds in the Grand Junction TIF will be a little bit more. Like, for example, for the large lot, which is 350,000.
Those are things we can consider, yes.
Yes, okay, so I had the same thought that Doug and Jill were saying, is that these lots, and I know when you guys came, you didn't have everything you were promised when you started, and you're kind of building on it, but yeah, I think those parking lots, I understand those entry improvements because it just beautifies the place. I think we can use some investments there. And are you thinking of doing the trailer yourself, and is this an annual fee, or what is the 80,000?
Well, Blake might want to answer that, but the majority of that is concrete fencing and some trees.
Okay,
The trailer
That's
will be on us annually.
okay.
remember that right,
So
Blake?
it's the pad and the area for it, okay, I just wanted to clarify that. So, yeah. Let's see, I think that was all the items. So I'm thinking maybe with some out of the TIF funds to improve on those parking lots, if we,
Again,
I know
we
we
can
kinda did
discuss
the
that,
budget,
but we
but-
want to be sure that we don't over-allocate those dollars,
I
given some of
realize that, yeah.
given our ultimate goal of having all the debt service paid.
right,
Yeah, that's key.
Yep.
We want to maintain that target.
Yep.
So I think if.
but I don't know where else would we get funds from the
Right.
city to do this?
Okay, so I think between William and Blake and your team, Ken, and John Rogers and myself, we can work through that, come up with your plan, finalize your plan, William, and let's see where the funding can come from and what the long-range plan looks like. And then obviously, I think we need to look beyond when your agreement expires, Ken, and see if, I know there's a couple options for extension, so we need to look at that and see what, how that fits into the picture also, because that's what continues the 285 then per year. So, Cam,
That's
anything
correct.
you want to add, please?
Yeah, I would mention contextually that looking at how an ask may be presented, and I think the feedback here is important to inform that consideration in the first place. But looking at the agreement, it specifically contemplates a sequence where there would be turf replacement, and then if there's any remaining funds, which may have just been from the best of everybody's knowledge at the time that it was created, but I think that ask should be in the form of, or would need to take the form of an amendment to the existing agreement that would need to then be approved by the commission and executed. So I think we need to reword that to allow more flexible use of the escrow proceeds based on how I reviewed that language.
Good point. Okay.
It's an administrative point, but important in
Right.
terms of how this would proceed
Sure.
if the commission would want to move forward with this request.
Right. The question I have for Ken and or Blake is the field usage deteriorating the fields faster or less aggressively than anticipated?
I think overall, it's less. I think it's more in a very, concise area.
Precise area?
Yeah, we've limited down we're replacing 30 to 40% of our turf in the infield every year. So if you look at and we did the same experiment with moats prior to doing it with AstroTurf. So we've done it with two different turf companies, looked over it. The original turf that was installed, there's been a ton of technology improvements, and you were limited based on bid and how city has to bid out things. And the way we were able to put a better product down. So we're getting much longer use out of what's been done more recently. We have not replaced any turf with that. So
Okay,
from a usage standpoint, I think we're seeing less, but more consistent.
Yeah, and I
So-
think that's a good point that you need to make as you work through the planning of the presentation, and just say, this is what was anticipated on the various fields, this is what we're seeing, and, that obviously then maybe shifts some of the money needs down the road
Yep.
a little bit, so you can accumulate a little bit more in the escrow.
So anybody that's watched a baseball game, you know where the outfielder stands, and they stand
Yeah.
in a very precise circle. So replacing those warning tracks is kind of a
Yeah.
waste of money.
Yeah. Okay, anything else for Blake and Ken? Otherwise, we'll let them go and they can work on their presentation for us later. I would also ask you, Blake, if you would email John Rogers this document, or these documents, so that we can put them into the record. Okay, good job, fellows, appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you.
Next
Thanks for
item on the
everybody's time.
agenda is the 2022 meeting schedule. As we know, we've had some pretty heavy workloads here recently, and that's kind of running into, in this case, Mr. John's meeting tonight, hopefully not, and APC, so we'll try to keep on schedule here, Mike. But, we can maintain the meetings on Monday. Maybe we need to move them up an extra half hour. I don't know what kind of a challenge that becomes for our commission members. We could try moving it to a different night where we're not backing up to anybody. But it works out well on Mondays because we many times have to approve something that goes immediately to the APC or the city council in a subsequent meeting that starts at 7 o'clock. So there's some issues if we get away from the current schedule that we have, but we need to make it better because we don't want to keep impinging upon the following meeting. So I'm open for any comments and suggestions from commission members. Linda, we'll start with you.
No, do you have a suggested, or we're just looking at Mondays? Are you suggesting?
Yeah, Joe and I've been talking to Joe. I've been talking with some of the folks that manage the other commissions. And we really have a sweet spot right now on this evening, where we've been doing it on the third Monday. The challenge has been some of the schedules, the doc have been a little longer. I think what we could do is possibly, if it works out for the members of the commission, on a agenda that is extremely large, maybe we could start at 5 or 5:30 on that particular evening, and then split that agenda for a follow-up meeting like we did this time. So that we keep the items that need the approval, and to keep the processing so that we can continue to be an effective and efficient set of bodies for the folks that come to us with requests. That's probably our best night.
And I think it, maybe like Bob Beaudry, who's working, or
Well,
if your
that's why I
attorneys
asked
have
the
to get,
question.
for me, it's not really a problem.
Yeah.
I'm just working.
Well,
it.
and we have remote access capability also.
True.
So
Yeah.
that could lend itself to making this a little bit more palatable.
Yeah,
So if there is a very early meeting, 5:30 or 5, those that are working could always remote in, and possibly that works for them then to be able to still be able to conduct the meeting. Bob, your comments?
Oh, I don't know. I'm fine. Whatever you guys decide as a collective body.
Okay, Jill, comments?
I could make 5 or 5:30 work. Maybe not every month, but by having the ability to call in, it should be able to work most months.
Okay, Doug?
Yeah, I agree with the comments I think Linda and Bob and Jill have made. John brings up a good point to have it on the same night, but if we need to meet earlier, I'm flexible. I can support that also.
Okay,
I
so
would, I
what
would just say, if we're gonna have public hearings, 5 o'clock is awfully early for the public to make public hearings. So we need to have those later,
And
they're
we
they're
could-
even
Second half of
sometimes
the
difficult
agenda
at
too,
6,
yeah.
but if we could keep those later in the meetings, I don't wanna,
And we could do that, again, by organizing the agenda in a fashion that would place the public hearing later in the agenda, so that the meeting will have already started. We will have gotten a lot of the housekeeping items out of the way, and lead up to that.
That's a good point Linda's making, because we do want to be able to maintain that public access. Well, okay, from what I hear from everyone, I think we'll leave it the same, and then we'll find a mechanism in how we will put that into our schedule. John and I work up the schedule for 2022, using Mondays and working the normal schedule, just like we did for this year. And then we'll try to notate on there that it's a possibility that those meetings could be starting earlier. Now, what I will ask everyone to do that supplies us with support, a legal firm as well as anybody else that supplies documentation to us, we generally have the agenda put together by Thursday. Most cases, we do not have the paperwork. If we do not have paperwork by Thursday, we need the final document that has to be linked on Thursday, then we're not going to put it on the agenda, because we're not going to do the rat race like we did this week, trying to get everything done in for this meeting, because we had a short meeting last week because we limited it to 1 hour. But I think we need everybody's cooperation. We have to plan a little better to get those things done that have to be done and get it on the agenda. So we're going to see, we'll put that word out to everyone and we'll see how it works. But that's got to be the goal of everybody. You have to have your documentation to the commission by Thursday so we can put the links on the website and also give the commission members time to review it, because I know based on what's I see coming down the road, there's going to be some very busy months, and that's going to require a lot of research in reading and digging into the various documents that we have to act on at our meetings. So I'd ask everybody's cooperation to try to do that, and we'll see how that works out. So for commission members, anything else you want to ask questions about at this point? Otherwise, John, we have nothing else for the
We're
agenda,
not doing
right?
the ratifications tonight, then? You don't want to do the ratifications?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I should have changed the agenda at the beginning.
Can we do that?
Hopefully Cam will let me do that. We do have item that we did not put on the agenda tonight, which is a ratification of the current Grant Park user agreements that we had on last week's agenda. Can we add that at this point?
It was a carryover, supposedly.
It's a carryover.
It is a carryover. It might make a cleaner record if you would ask for somebody to move to have that included in the agenda, and then you can all vote to
Okay,
do so.
let's do that, to add that item to the agenda. Do I have a motion to add ratification of current Grant Park user agreements in tonight's meeting? I move that we do so.
Second, Linda Nass.
Second, Linda Nass. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. We'll take roll call. Bob Beaudry?
Aye.
Jill Doyle?
Aye.
Doug Holtz?
Aye.
Linda Nass?
Aye.
Joe Plankus, aye. Motion carries. We'll add that to the agenda. We've had that on the agenda last week, and everyone got copies of massive list of agreements, user agreements. Are there any questions or discussions on that before I ask for a motion for approval of those agreements?
I had asked William, because there was an agreement in there with MetroNet to get more IP addresses, and I think that's a monthly fee. And then there was an agreement for purchasing a sign for Lot A. Everything else was pretty much user agreements that seemed pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Any comments you wanted to make on those?
No, as I mentioned,
Okay.
the William Knox, Grand Park Director, the MetroNet charges for our additional line of service were getting installed to the campus for streaming purposes, and then the sign will be an insurance claim that someone hit sign A by the diamond side of the complex, and we're getting it replaced.
Good to know.
Good.
So there were 38 documents altogether. Okay.
Okay, thank you, William. Do I have a motion for approval of the ratification of the current Grant Park user agreements?
I move we approve the ratification of the Grand Park user agreements.
Motion to approve by Linda Nass. Joe Plankus, second that motion. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. John, please take roll.
Bob Beaudry,
Aye.
Linda Nass,
Aye.
Doug Holtz,
Aye.
Jill Doyle,
Aye.
Joe Plankus.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Anything else? Thank you for reminding me, Linda. Anything else on our agenda, John, that we need to address?
Not this evening.
Okay, if not, I move we adjourn the meeting. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second, Doug Holtz. All All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Voice vote, aye.
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 Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.